Hello, welcome to part 2 of our Akuma Basics Guide. Reminder that this is game version 4.2. In this part, we're going to talk more about strategy and go over some basic game plan elements, which will build on the essential moves list we already went over. Also, don't forget about all the resource links I mentioned in part 1. I've included those once again in the video description below. Real short, so let's get going. We'll start by stating the obvious. Akuma's basic mix-up game is simply down 3 or down 4 and some mid of your choosing. You can use instant while standing 2, down forward 1, standing 2, really whatever you want based on the risk you're willing to take. Unlike most characters, by the way, while standing 4 is not typically used as a mid check for Akuma since its frames are worse than your standard while standing 4, so unless you're willing to play crazy and finish while standing 4 a bunch, I wouldn't recommend using it a lot. Taken alone, these aren't anything special, but what makes them powerful is that they can all link to his special moves. We're not going to waste time going over every little detail of moves that have literally been around for 30 years, but the quick rundown is that you have your fireballs and air fireballs, your red fireballs, your tatsus and air tatsus, shurikens, also called demon punches or DPs, your teleports, demon flip, and EX versions of most of these, which just means that you use meter to make them a little better. We'll also talk about demon flip and jumping in a bit, but here's what you need to know about specials. First, fireballs are your zoning tool. Unlike a 2D game, fireballs can be stepped in Tekken, but you still use them to dictate the pace of the match, allowing you to slowly inch your way in while preventing them from quickly dashing in your face. So your goal here is to slow things down and ultimately be the one to make the decision about going in. Tatsus and DPs are very punishable, so these are almost solely reserved for combos or interrupt. Heavy DP and EX DP both have invincibility frames, much like Street Fighter, so mindlessly pressuring Akuma is not wise. On that note, doing a special with 1+2 or 3+4 for the Tatsu will use 1 bar of meter and give you an EX version, which is a version of the move that has some combination of better frames and damage. And you also have a Fireball Super, which you'll normally only use if you need to chip your opponent out, since it's 5 hits and does a little bit of block damage, or you desperately need a quick damage boost on a special link to close out a match. The teleports, by the way, are very difficult to place, so you can use them, but you probably shouldn't focus on them for basics since they leave you quite open if your opponent reacts to them. But all of these can be linked from neutral moves. The most common link starters are 1, 1, 1, 2 or forward 2, down 1, down 1, 2, down 2, down 3, and while standing 2. You'll also see some while standing 1 and while standing 3 on occasion, but those are used a lot for punishing. A link is simply a starter plus a special move, and it acts in a very similar manner as a normal Tekken string. The biggest difference is that a special will only come out if the starter hits or is blocked. No link will happen if the starter whiffs. Moreover, whether or not the special will count as a natural combo depends on the situation. For instance, every special is a natural combo when linked from down 3 if down 3 hits clean. At max range, nothing will combo with down 3 on normal hit, mostly due to range. Another example, his single jab doesn't give enough frame advantage on normal hit to combo with a linked fireball or tatsu. The jab has to be counter hit to combo with those. Down 1 is the same, which is why down 2 is often preferable since it can combo with a linked fireball tatsu on normal hit despite down 2 being a little slower. By the way, down 1-2 is simply a down 1 followed by a down 2, but the down 1 needs to hit counter hit, otherwise they can block the 2. How you use links will largely depend on your risk tolerance. For instance, down 3 Tatsu is a common knockdown splat option, but Tatsu is high and -15 on block, so if they read it, you can get launched. And if the down 3 doesn't hit clean, it's not a natural combo. So instead, players will often opt for down 3 Fireball since it's still a natural combo if the down 3 hits clean, but it's much safer if the Fireball gets blocked from a non-clean distance. Using down 4 with down 3 helps too, since they have to consider different defensive options for the 2, and that can be hard to handle on the fly. As we'll discuss next, you can also use meter to link and then dash cancel his 1+2 as if it were a special, and this can even be done from some specials, which lowers your linking risk and skyrockets the reward. As we mentioned in the Essential Moves section, FADC stands for Focus Attack Dash Cancel. There are two circumstances in which you'll hear about FADC. We already talked about using it in the neutral to give the FA better frames, which is the first circumstance, but equally important is that by spending 1 bar of meter, you can use your FA as if it were a special move to link it to a starter. So simply pressing 1+2 after any of the starters we just went over, you'll consume a bar and your FA will come out just like a special move. Even better than a special, you can link FA after specials like this too, so you can do a fireball into a FA by spending a bar. What ratchets up the utility of this is that you can of course still dash cancel the FA when you link it this way. In effect, FADCing by using a bar allows you to cancel the recovery of your move into a dash. You'll have to simply practice this to get it down, but you have a pretty big buffer window to do this cancel, so you can either do 1+2 forward or forward 1+2 forward. Just get a double forward in there somehow, whichever feels the best to you is the one you should use. But the important element here is that the quicker and earlier you get the double forward, the more advantage you'll get. Quick tip, if you find that you're doing a really fast FADC but you're not getting the big plus frames, try doing the double forward earlier rather than faster. You can do this a lot earlier than you might think. Because this does involve some execution, most Akuma players bind 1+2 to a single button to make it simpler. Why is this meter FADC important? Because it skyrockets your damage potential. Jab DP FADC allows you to get a legitimate full launch from a normal 10-frame jab, for example, but of course the big money, however, is FADCing from a fireball. You can get up to +15 doing this. At the wall, you'll typically follow up the FADC with a 1-2 to get your splat, so down 3 fireball FADC 1-2 is a 49 damage wall splatter from an unseeable low on normal hit without rage. In the open, back 1 is your moneymaker since it's an I-14 launcher if you go immediately into a Demon Flip 3. So similarly, down 3 fireball FADC back 1 is essentially a 34 damage low launcher for just 1 bar of meter. Or you can do this from down 2, so a 12 frame high crushing launcher, this time for 30 damage. And if you have a full meter and want to use both bars, you can absolutely do another FADC by doing standing 2 into another fireball FADC, since standing 2 is I-15. This of course requires that you did the max +15 FADC to begin with, but it adds another 27 damage to your unscaled pre-launch damage total. We'll go over some quick tips in part 3 on how to practice this, since it's a lot of inputs in fairly quick order, but the point here is that FADC combos are what makes Akuma broken and what allows for all those death combos you've surely seen. And as we'll get into next, you can get free hits from jumping moves, which adds even more unscaled damage, so FADCing is a critical mechanic you need to learn. So practice, practice, practice. Jumping for the most part is fairly simple. You have 8 regular attacks, 1 for each button when you do up forward or up back, and 1 for each button if you jump straight up. Akuma maintains a 2D jump, so he goes higher and stays up for longer than a normal Tekken character. You'll typically do the up forward jump for your offense, but the important piece of jumping is that your moves recover as soon as you hit the ground. So you get better frames the closer you are to the ground when the move connects. So your goal then is to land a move as close to the ground as you can. Jump forward 2 and 4 are the most common since they do the most damage and give you the best potential advantage. Both can give you up to +19 on hit, although +16 or so is more common. So once you get a feel for when you'll get the big plus frames, that's when you can start getting free down forward 2 1s or standing 2s, which then of course leads to FADC nonsense. Even an easy jump in 4 jab SRK FADC is a solid 37 damage launcher. On block though, you'll still get plus frames if you're low when they hit. You also have an air fireball and Tatsu, both of which can be EX'd. They serve similar functions as the grounded ones, you're just doing them from a jump, although the Tatsu is a launcher if you hit it low enough, and you'll sometimes see some crossover stuff with this. D-flip is different in a few ways. For one, it's considered a special move, so you can link it just like any other. Down 3 into Demon Flip is common if you don't want to take the risk of doing a Fireball, SRK, or Tatsu, and it can avoid some down 3 punishes. Second, you have 2 versions of D-Flip, with Crouch Dash 3 going only a short distance, and Crouch Dash 4 going farther. Third, if you don't hit any buttons after initiating a D-Flip, you will get a low attack. It's normally not something you want, but it forces you to make a decision on an attack, and because of this, D-flip is considered an attack immediately, so your opponent will get a counter hit if they hit you anytime after you initiate it, even in the air. You also get far more leeway on the crouch dash input, so you can do a forward dash, let the full dash complete, then do down forward 3 or 4, and the D-flip will still come out. This is important to know because if you try to do dash down 3 fireball, your inputs need to be very clean. If you start buffering the fireball before you hit 3, you'll get a dash D-flip instead. All the other D-flip moves are pretty straightforward. D-flip 1 is a safe knockdown high, 3 down 4 on hit, and it's your quickest option at I7. D-flip 2 is much slower at I16, but another safe mid and can launch on hit if close enough. D-flip 4 is another mid, I12, always plus frames on block and will give you a minimum of plus 16 on hit, so again, free down forward 2-1 or a starter into FADC stuff. D-flip 3 is a safe mid homing move that will launch on counter hit, really important since sidestep right can get around everything else, and then you have D-flip 1+3 and 2+4, which is an unbreakable grab. You also have an EX fireball, but it's not nearly as good as these other moves, and the meter burn is usually not worth it, but that's ultimately up to you. D-flip is really cheap, but the key to using it is mixing up the timings when you use it. If you're doing D-flip raw from the neutral, that's normally going to give your opponent plenty of time to either anti-air you or just sidestep. Even doing D-flip from a hit like down 3 or a jab does not give you enough time to prevent a sidestep unless you do D-flip 3. So you need to be wise with your pressure and do lots of fireball links, jab harass, etc. to get them thinking about something else. Then demon flip pressure becomes really annoying. But the flip side to this is that, like other specials, demon flip will keep your opponent honest and give you back initiative on things like down 3 if you opt not to link anything. And with both jumps, keep in mind that they get high enough for you to get over a lot of stuff, including jabs. A common setup, if forward 3 hits in the neutral, a follow-up jump or demon flip will go right over jabs or any other move that hits at that height or lower. Down forward 1 on hit gives a similar situation. So the normal jab harass game of Tekken is very dangerous against Akuma. Just be wise with your jumps and you'll be comboing in no time. On a final note, since we already mentioned the only worthwhile grab Akuma has, which is the demon flip grab, you should now have all the information you need to start rocking a solid game plan. So practice those FADCs and take some time to figure out your risk tolerance when you get into clean hit range for down 3. The wins will shortly follow. This brings us to the end of part 2. Hopefully this discussion gets your creativity going and helps get you some wins. In part 3, we'll finish the guide off by going over some quick referential items like combos and punishers, and then we'll end with a brief character summary. Watch for that here in the next couple of days. And with that, thank you for checking out this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe here on YouTube. Also be sure to turn on notifications if you'd like to get alerted as soon as a new vid is uploaded. I also try to stream whenever I can, so the link to Twitch is down in the video description below. You will find Twitter and Facebook links down there too. Lastly, special thanks to our 3 patrons, Tato, Apples, and Overhaul. That support means a lot. Patreon is definitely the best way to support your favorite content creators, and the more support the channel gets, the more content I can afford to do. Stay safe everyone, and we'll see you next time.